It's basically an Abhidharma theory. It's post-Buddha theory that says that the way rebirth happens is that there is a continuum of moments of consciousness, and that the last moment of consciousness that you as an individual experience prior to your death, there is a moment of consciousness that links your existence as a mental entity to another being, and that each of these moments of consciousness is that make up our life. Each moment of consciousness is the cause of the next moment of consciousness, and that what links one life to another is that the last moment of consciousness in one life acts as the trigger for the first moment of consciousness in this other being's next life. There are, from my point of view, huge philosophical and experiential problems with that Abhidharma theory. So I would not agree with it as it's stated. On the other hand, there is a much deeper understanding to all of these things. There is a deeper understanding to the doctrine of rebirth. There is a deeper understanding to what we mean by karmic propensities that continue on. Now, if I can describe that very briefly, and it has to be briefly because we just have a limited amount of time, but ultimately I'd like to have you all have your own experience and realization of this. When we speak of oneness, then it makes no longer any sense to speak of me as an individual and some other individual that's being reborn later on. The separateness of those two is an illusion. That ultimate reality is the total interconnectedness, the emptiness, and the emptiness and the unity translates in terms of the kind of conceptual formations that we can use in a talk like this into being total interconnectedness. So the consciousness that brings anything into being is not the individual consciousness. It is the universal consciousness. It's the consciousness that partakes directly of the quality of oneness that we're talking about. What happens in you as an individual, each of us as an individual, and in future individuals after you have died, after we have died, thinking in terms of future time. There will be this process of individuation. There will be another person who experiences himself as an I, and who comes into this world with karmic propensities. Amongst those karmic propensities are the very fundamental ones of the desire and the aversion and the attachment to the idea of self that we talked about. But then there's all the much more subtle add-ons that we develop. Those in as much as there is a oneness, those don't disappear with an artificially isolated part of a totally interconnected process. Nothing that constitutes a wave in the ocean ceases to exist with the wave. It merely continues in a different form as a part of the ocean. If in a river flowing downhill, it forms a whirlpool and an eddy, that's a process. The only thing that it has is the temporary pattern that makes it appear as an object for a period of time. And that's a pattern of energy. And that energy, when the whirlpool dissipates, doesn't cease to exist. It doesn't disappear. It only is transformed. And it may very well show up as another whirlpool a little further down the river. If you have a little less water flowing, that happens. It's a whirlpool, it disappears, and then another one shows up. And this keeps happening over and over. That would be a closer approximation, intellectually to what rebirth is than this idea that somewhere hidden in this mass of body and mind is something that is going to go on and something I can cling to, because there are all kinds of things about this body and mind that you are that came from all kinds of beings in the past and will be passed on to all kinds of beings in the future. The important thing is that you are them, not that you are you and that you were one of them and you will be one of them in the future. That's not what's important. That would be a really disappointing outcome. That, as a matter of fact, was the disappointing outcome that the Brahmanic philosophers had come to at the time of the Buddha. They had this view of reincarnation. And here we are, you're born over and over and over again. And at first that sounds good. Oh, well, death's not the end of it. I get to have another shot at it. But then every birth means a death. And so there was this idea that, well, the realization that rebirth means re-death. And the realization that although at first glance the idea of this self that I really am being reborn again and again, that's not such a good idea after all. And the Buddha said, hey, no problem. It doesn't exist anyway. You don't have to worry about it anymore. But there is a deeper truth that if you can come to that truth, that will liberate you. That will set you free.